Russia launched major drone and missile strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, causing widespread blackouts in Odessa and beyond. Ukraine responded with attacks inside Russia. Diplomatic efforts are underway in Berlin with United States, European Union and Ukrainian officials aiming for a possible ceasefire. They are looking for ceasefire, but they are continuing attack on each other. Don't you think until a limited pause, ceasefire will get respond? Along with, I have a question, sir. What are the realistic prospects for a ceasefire at the upcoming Berlin peace talks you assume? Sir Dalton.
Well, I think any peace talks or any ceasefire has to be initiated by Mr. Putin himself. That Russia has to decide. They have all the cards. They can control what's going to happen. So unless they're prepared for ceasefire, unless they're prepared to back off a little bit and acknowledge that they have lost this engagement with Ukraine, I don't see any possibility of a ceasefire or a rapprochement or any kind of a peace deal to be made. And I think it's also, I got a couple of seconds. Can I give you a little comparison here? I was thinking about this because it's Martyrs' Day in Bangladesh. It's a wonderful recognition of the history of what happened, about where people who are in conflict with each other refuse to accept the other person's point of view. The Biharis and the Bangladeshis refused to accept it until there was this recognition that the Bihari and the Indian and the Pakistanis could not succeed, and they simply withdrew from the battlefield and they lost. And so we celebrate that day, but only because so many martyrs were killed. Now, let's look at the eastern part of Ukraine, where everybody there is an ethnic Russian. All the old people get pensions from Russia. Land is registered in the name of Russia. And so it may well be that, that Ukraine, not any individual person, but Ukraine has to recognize some way that this area is not really Ukrainian ethnically. And the same way that Bangladeshis and the Biharis had to recognize that there was a separation and therefore there had to be some settlement. That when they knew that they couldn't win, there was a settlement. And I'm thinking when Russia must know that they cannot win this, in fact, I'm hoping that they will have some sort of a settlement. It's in Putin's hands, but I'm optimistic that not a ceasefire, but actually some recognition that this conflict has to end. And peace is more important than a ceasefire.
Ukrainian people want the war end.
Sure.
And they want to come back to home. Sir, I just want to know from you, I just want to learn from you, what role should United States and European Union countries play in structuring and any future peace agreement? Because Donald Trump already indicated that he may withdraw his support along with NATO from Ukraine. It is a paradigm shift from the focus.
Well, I mean, Trump is like a yo-yo, today he has one position, tomorrow he has a different position. The U.S., I think that most of the U.S. people still continue to support Ukraine, wants to have Ukraine to have a, free life within the European environment. I mean, Russia has been the aggressor. Russia consummated this war. They're the ones that attacked Ukraine. They did it in the name of the two eastern provinces in Ukraine. And so I think the U.S. in this situation must be steadfast in support of their allies in NATO and the European Union. They must stand up to Russia. He's waffling, but he's what's called, taco. Trump always chickens out. And so in this situation, I think it's incumbent on Putin to put as much pressure as you possibly can on Putin. Cut off the oil supplies, cut off everything as possible in terms of any money available. Take the Belgian money and use it for reconstruction or give it to the Ukrainians. But Putin holds the decision. You can talk to Ukrainians, you can talk to Zelensky, you can talk to anybody. Unless Russia admits that this battle is over and they cannot dictate the terms to Ukraine to make them sacrifice their sovereignty, Russia has to agree to back off. And the pressure should be on Russia, not coddling Russia, sending his son-in-law, other people to talk to Putin. Putin has to admit and agree that he is not going to be expansionist. Norman is correct. As soon as this guy makes a deal, Putin makes a deal in which he gains something, he cannot be stopped. You said the same thing. He will progress through Europe constantly. Yes. Moldova would be next. Okay? I am optimistic, however, because Belarus's action over the weekend, freeing 123 prisoners, means to me that they see the writing on the wall, that Russia will not succeed long term in this battle, because Belarus and Russia have been buddies for a long time.
Correct.
I'm hoping that the Belarus action is an indicator that maybe the Russian population and the Russian allies are looking at the situation and saying, this has to stop because we're losing money. I mean, there's no great moral principle involved. Russian economy is collapsing. And if Russia can somehow save face, back off and stay off in a permanent peace agreement, that's possible. But a temporary ceasefire, it's just an invitation for next week's battle. Well, I think we're all looking at the fearful situation. Is he a psychopath? Is Putin so crazy and so out of touch, okay, that he wants to be sort of like a 18th century commander of the Russian Empire trying to move towards the West?
Like the Tsars?
Like the Tsars. I mean, he's
like
caught
Tsars,
up in this
Alexander.
identity problem that he is so powerful. Huh? But I mean, if you were in Ukraine's position and you looked at all the peace agreements that Donald Trump has signed, Thailand, Cambodia, the strongest party attacks the weaker party. Congo and Rwanda, the stronger party attacks the weaker party. Israel and Gaza, the stronger party attacks the weaker party. As minute as you sign off on a so-called ceasefire, a Trump ceasefire, you're going to get your butt kicked. And it's ridiculous for anybody to put any trust in Donald Trump's negotiating ability on the international stage. Everything he signs turns out to be a bad deal.
Sir, let us be very clear. How might the killing of a senior Hamas figure affect the fragile ceasefire at Gaza?
You know, they kill them all the time. I mean, this is Israel for many years has been attacking individual Hamas leaders, individual leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood inside Gaza. It's more, for me, it's a preferable way of Israel to react than for indiscriminate bombing of the resident population. They have some consistent opposition to Hamas, and they find a way with an individual rocket. They get information and they attack that person, and that person unfortunately does not make it out of the car. So I don't think it's going to change anything at all. It's more likely, however, to on the air attacks that are going on in Khan Yunis and in the south, where 37 people were killed yesterday, including women and children. This is an indefensible breach of the ceasefire agreement. This may engage some of the international community to continue to put more and more pressure on Israel to back off a bit. Now, whether there's sort of a holiday ceasefire is coming up, who will be able to say? But I think that the individual killing of a Hamas leader is a common affair in that part of the world.
Sir, I want to know from what leverage does the United States brokered peace plan still have on both parties? No one is respecting this peace plan, and how can international actors like United Nations, United Arab Emirates, because it is also a big player becoming Qatar, contribute to sustainable de-escalation?
Well, I think there are some people who are legitimately interested in peace in that area. The negotiators, Egypt and Qatar, and many of the European countries as well, are interested in some stabilization, some peace, because it affects everybody. But the ceasefire is a mirage. I mean, there's no ceasefire involved at all. I mean, if you think that ceasefire is like giving like a breathing space to people in Gaza just for a few days while you continue to bomb and attack them, that's not anywhere close to peace. And the point that was just made about the fact that once you're under attack like that, human rights leaves the room. Great expression. This is like exponentially happening in Gaza. So I don't think that there's any prospect for people recognizing the ceasefire, and that the situation is not going to change until these countries that are involved in like the peace negotiation. Let's say Qatar, for example. Okay, I mean there are families in Qatar, rich oil-rich families in Qatar that are providing money directly to Hamas. There are oil-rich families in UAE that are providing money directly to the forces in Sudan. It's not a government issue, it's not a government response, but the rich people who are trying to prolong the war for whatever reason, or support their idea of Hamas being a force for good. This is outside the framework of normal negotiations. These are not companies, these are countries, these are individual, very rich people that are fueling the fight by giving billions, multiple millions of dollars to Hamas and other terrorist activities, because they want to foment some sort of a conflicts, obviously in their own interest.
Sir, European leaders have expressed concern about the Trump's push for a Ukraine peace deal that some view as unfavorable to Kiev, risking a rift with NATO allies. Very direct indication. My question is, how is the Trump administration's foreign policy shifting, and what would be the consequences if once United States lost all its allies and partners?
Well, they'll lose credibility. I mean, everybody recognizes that presidencies come and go, and so that it's never the United States which is perceived as the enemy or the non-participant or non-cooperating partner. People understand that we're going through some difficult transitions in the United States. European partners are sort of uncomfortable with that. They would expect the NATO partner to be 100% committed to protecting Ukraine, that this is existential for European countries to say, well, we can't afford to let Russia gain an advantage. Why are we negotiating from a position of weakness? We should be negotiating from a position of strength. But you know, Trump is not a traditional, as we've talked about today, he's not a traditional foreign policy guy. What he has done is put up the stove and have like 10,000 pressure cookers going at the same time. Everything is like going like this all around the world. He claims to be a peacemaker. He's pursuing the Nobel Peace Prize, and he's creating conflict out of his agreements. Thailand, Cambodia, and every other place in the world. So he is igniting these fires. I mean, there are some people that say that, his whole intent is to create enough problems so that he can come in and solve them and make himself a hero. But I think most European leaders recognize that this is a temporary problem, that Mr. Trump is one of a kind, that he does not have a consistent foreign policy, but that he has begun to express sort of a position that seems to abandon the post-World War II order of NATO being a key partner of the United States. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, Canada, the United States, as well as all the European powers, they're sort of getting weak in the knees in face of one guy, Putin in Russia. I don't understand it personally, but I think that it's always looked at through a monetary lens with Donald Trump.
And according to American Constitution and American people's desire, do you think this administration is fit for 2025 United States very progressive movement, transactional administration by Donald Trump, sir?
Well, thank God we only have 15 more days of 2025 to deal with him. 2026, by June, of course, the midterm elections will be on the horizon, and then you'll see a lot of different kind of positions coming out in opposition to what Trump is doing. But I think, Norman has said it quite correctly. I mean, he doesn't care what the American people think about what he does outside the country, and he doesn't care what kind of cruelty or impact his policies might have on average people. You remember that we had this big conversation in September about the shutdown of the U.S. government, and we were going to have a negotiation on health policy as soon as this was finished, and the Russians that's a Freudian slip, the Republicans promised to negotiate a better healthcare situation. Well, that didn't happen, and it's not going to happen. They are dead fat against giving anything to the American people that will make their lives better. Okay? And the people who are most affected by this, sadly, are in the so-called red states, Republican states, but they do not seem to process this information. They give Mr. Trump a complete carte blanche to do what he wants to do. They are suffering, but nobody's taken up any action against him. They cannot. We're outnumbered in Congress, in the Senate, in the House, and the presidency. We have to sort of like play our little bitty cards once in a while. But nothing's going to be done to exert pressure on Donald Trump domestically or on internationally.